Can you hear me okay? Okay, just so you know, what happened was April 19th, I fell and I fractured L345S1, the coccyx bone, the facets which hold vertebrae to the spine, four of them, and I herniated and bulged all the discs. So my right leg was like 75% numb, so I called it congressional members. But November, I fell and tore my leg. I was black and blue from my ankle up through my spine. And I fell backwards and refractured L3-4. So yesterday was the first day of walking. So what I'm going to do, can you hear me okay? Because I don't know if this is, okay. I think the best way to explain is how I got to what I'm doing, okay? And then it'll explain some of the theories as I'm going along, okay? Very active person. You know, I used to cut 25 lawns a week, did brick patios, the whole thing when I was 15, 16 years old. Well, December 4th, 1971, when I was 16, I woke up paralyzed on my left side. And I'm telling you this also because of the reason, which also relates to what people before me were speaking about. Okay, so a lot of what I'm going to say is actually to support what they were saying. So what happened was I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Long story short, it was ALS. And they said, well, there's no cure for it, you'll be dead. Well, I concocted my own foods, my own, looking at everything I was eating. And what gave me that intuition was my grandfather had an identical twin, which means they had the same DNA. Well, my grandfather was an arrogant alcoholic. We never saw him sober. And he died in 1961 of 8 different cancers. And his identical twin, Mickey, we never touched alcohol or anything, whatever they ate was pure material. They grew their own food. They had their own animals that they slaughtered. So everything was as pure could be. He was perfectly fine. And actually, he lived to 105. But at that time, I'm looking at both people's same DNA and two opposite results. So I said, all right, I'm going to do what Mickey's doing. Got everything pure, everything real, and even with the cakes and cookies, it was all real ingredients. And so I got better, and I was in the hospital maybe 40% of the time, but I was getting back on my feet. I was walking with a cane, and I actually went to college and became an architect. And they were like, we have no idea how you did that. But I was going to comas too. And so as I graduated, it got really bad, and they realized it was pancreatic cancer. And I was 21. And my sister was happy, though. She thought she was getting my room. So I had 4 sisters, 2 older, 2 younger. They shared a room, so the younger one figured she'd get her own room. But so what happened was, I looked at them and said, I never took any drug, never took any alcohol, never smoked, nothing. I said, this doesn't add up. Well, we don't know, but we don't know how you got it. You got 6 months to live with surgery, 3 weeks with no surgery. All right. I had to have surgery because my blood sugar levels were going to 6. And those who don't understand, 80 to 120 is normal blood sugar. 60, you become hypoglycemic. 30, go to coma. 10, you're dead. I was at 6. All right. So getting over that, I had my doctor look at all the minerals in my body. I said, it has to be something with the minerals in my body. As an architect, you do reverse engineering. Okay? And I said, you doctors, all you do is symptomatic treatments. You're not looking at why I got it. So this particular doctor agreed with me, figured out all the minerals in my body, whatever I was low in, I took huge amounts. 2 years, my cancer was gone. So, and they had no idea. And he said, well, we don't know why that happened. I said, well, I'm not coming back. Right. And that was what's now Winthrop Hospital. It was Nassau Hospital. Okay. So then in 1980, I went to med school to be transplant surgeon because I was trying to figure out why they couldn't figure this out. And they kept on telling me it was an outside invader, it was an immune problem. And I said, yeah, but the immune system only goes after something that the body didn't make. So it's a different phenotype. And the phenotype is when you have your DNA, you have all these particular amino acids at a particular arrangement, these particular group are identical for every cell in your body that your body makes. A different person, it's a different arrangement in every cell that they have. So I wanted to look at transplants because with transplants, you're taking the organ out of another person's body, which means the different phenotype, and how the body immune system goes after that. I want to compare it to the cancer to show and prove that cancer's got nothing to do with immunological problems. So I also taught chemistry lab at Stony Brook while I did that. Well, I wanted to do kidney, heart, lung, pancreas transplants. And I'm looking with these patients, and I'm saying, you know, the kidney is a chelating agent. It's going to take minerals or metals or whatever, but it's out of proportion for the body. Take it out, and it goes out through the bladder. Okay. They looked at me like I was crazy. And when we were dealing with the patients, we were saying, okay, you got to take these minerals so that when you go to get the surgery, you'll be able to heal faster from the transplant. So what happened was they had 20% kidney function, then up to 30%, 50%, 80%. Now they didn't need the transplant anymore. And over a 4-year time, I was able to show that 80% of all transplants were not needed, that there was simply a mineral deficiency. And I got in a lot of trouble because they told me I was interfering with their funding. And I said, I thought we were here to save lives. I said, I'm not a political person. And so I said, I'm only here to show you how to save lives, not about making money. So, all right, long story short, they threatened me that if I didn't do what they told me to do, they were going to pull my license. So I told them, have a nice day and keep it. And my mother was like, yeah, you would do that. And I did. So I went back to engineering and all that good stuff. And so anyway, long story, I was still working with it, helping people here and there. And I was doing well. And I also have different patterns on with ultrasonic knives. So instead of cutting through the cells, the vibrations separate the fat layers between the cells. So you open and you use a fraction of the anesthesia. And the scar is a very thin pencil line. We did it on dogs, and it was working great. But I was going to kill their pocketbook. So, all right. So moving forward, I was in the World Trade Center bombing, and because I have a bunch, as I said, with my patents, and I was there, I became a stockbroker, so nobody would steal my patents. So, well, I happened to be there with not 9/11, but the '93 bomb. And I had 47 fractures, 118 pieces of bomb shrapnel. And I woke up in a body cast. And they told me I'd never walk again. So I just tell people I went there for lunch, we had a blast. My kids call me Napoleon Bonaparte. So, you know, I always teach people when things are really bad, you gotta have humor, because if you feel sorry for yourself, you're never gonna get resolution. So what happened was I worked on my own physical therapies, and I did see a lot of doctors and a lot of orthopedics and stuff. I had a team of 3 orthopedics, and they looked at me like, you're never going to walk. And so, because I broke both shoulders, left pelvis, my rib cage was shattered, my spine was wrecked, you know, the whole thing. So what happened was, but it was a learning experience. I said, if you take a tragedy and you learn from it, you can develop ideas or theories that nobody else thought of. And I was showing Neil Sedaka was wrong. Breaking up is not hard to do. So anyway, what happened was, getting better, it took me 4.5 years before I could stand and walk. And so the summer of 1997, my sister came down sick. And so I'm telling you this because it's all important. So my sister came down sick. She's 3 years older than me. And she came down with the same pancreatic cancer that I had. And that answered all my questions. And so I went backwards with my mother, and I said, all right, what did they do to you when you were trying to have kids? Okay, and it fits in line with the gal that was speaking just before me. So what happened was, my parents got married in 1948, and my mother had 4 miscarriages. So when she carried my older sister Rosemary in 1950, they gave her DES. No, I'm wrong. They didn't give Rosemary DES. They made her stay in bed the whole time. while she carried Rosemary. She carried Diana, 1952, they made my mother take the DES to prevent the miscarriages. I was born 1955, they gave my mother DES for me. 1957, it was outlawed when she carried Barbara at 57 and Valerie in 1960. So Diana and I were the two that were given the DES, and we were the two that came down with the pancreatic cancer. And now that answered when I did my research on it, and the hormone changes and such, and it fit. So a lot of women don't realize that their kids, or a lot of kids don't realize what the parents were given in earlier times are affecting their health issues. So everybody, most of the doctors looked at me like I was crazy, until some of them came to me and said, yeah, they've done research, but nobody wants to publish it. All right, we moved forward. At least I know what the answer was. I got Diana to show, September 12th was her diagnosis. I got her to show a 1/3 reduction on October 10th. And then her doctor convinced her to stop taking it and said, no, you got to take the 5-FU, leucovorin radiation, get rid of the real medicine. I said, Diana, what are you, nuts? And so what happened was, she goes, well, you only studied to be a transplant surgeon. He's an oncologist. Okay? So, long story short, sadly, she started October 15th on the 5-FU leucovorin, and she died December 15th, 2 months to the day. So, it really devastated me. And I was living in a hospital bed in the living room because I couldn't go up the stairs. And I said to Laura, I said, we can't allow this to happen. I said, this is criminal. And this is what the doctors are taught. So I'm not angry at the doctors because that's all they know. So we got to wake up people. All right. So the funeral was December 18th. My mother's best friend's husband was diagnosed that morning with colon cancer the size of a football. So I told him, well, you got self-entertainment. So what happened was, they said they gave him no hope. And I wrote down the formula that I had. And I said, here, go to the drugstore. It cost him $350 for 1 scoop worth a day. And he was taking 4, so it was costing like $1,400, $1,500. All right, so what happened was, April, it was down to the size of a walnut. Memorial Day, gone. So that's when I knew I nailed it. So all of a sudden, people coming to me, and very long story short was, I was showing that cancer is a mutation caused by improper proportions of minerals within the body, which is altering the electromagnetic field in the body. And I'll get into that so it's easy to understand. Now, when it's different, you're going to get a different attraction and repulsion in the body. And if everybody knows, you have a magnet. Magnets will attract the positive to negative, but repel negative to negative or positive to positive. So what I was trying to show is when you have the correct frequencies in the correct volume to each other, in the correct proportions, you're creating an atmosphere which is going to encourage specific type of reactions to take place and prevent other type of reactions from taking place. And when it's different, you're going to have a different electromagnetic atmosphere, which is going to cause a different response. Okay? So the doctor's looking at the result, not what caused it to be there in the first place. And I'm, as an engineer, looking at it, let's go backwards to what caused that to be there in the first place. And I also became a naturopathic doctor, because naturopathic is all natural, no chemicals. Because my theory is, or not my theory, but my statement is, how can you put a toxic material into the body and expect natural results? That's my main line. And so everything else following in line with that, it's like if you're putting in gasoline, how's that going to make you feel better? Okay, so my point is, yeah, the chemos will kill the cancer, but it's not correcting why it was there in the first place. And then the next generation is more deviated from normal from the previous generation because of the toxic chemistry of the chemo. And now the next generation is going to be more severe than the previous, and they say, oh wow, it came back with aggression. It didn't come back with aggression. That was a toxic side effect of the chemo, or whatever. And when they give radiation, my response is, what part of Chernobyl don't they understand? Okay? And, when there's surgery, they take it out, but they never corrected why the body made it in the first place. It's not that outside invader. And the best example I have on that is a gal Jennifer right here at Cold Spring Harbor, and we have a video of it. I have the Facebook, the group, the National Cancer Research Foundation. Jennifer had brain cancer, and 4 times. And what happened was they kept on doing surgery, took it out, and came back. And took it out, came back. And I said, yeah, because they never corrected why you had it. And I said, so what do you care about brain cancer? You're blind. And so she loved that. She told everybody. So she has fun with that. But a very, very sweet gal. So what happened was, so when she went back to her doctor August 8, 2011, the doctor said, oh, it's just so bad. This is the 4th recurrence, and we can't do surgery anymore because you're going to die. So she was 39 years old. And so what happened was, she knew us before when she had the 2nd recurrence, and she had taken this and then stopped because the doctor told her, you know, oh, don't do that. Well, all right, long story short, August 8th, she started. September 8th, 1 month, it was gone, no evidence. A year later, they did the anniversary. They had no idea why she was alive. And they said, we have never seen this before. So they did the testing on the anniversary of 2012, and it showed not only did she not have any cancer or any remnants of it, the previous surgeries were breaking down into normal tissue, which they'd never seen before either. So she said to them, well, would you like to know what I'm doing? I'm showing it to you. But no, we didn't give it to you, so we're not interested. So it is what it is. So that, you know, now, how many people know Ben Gazzara?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember Christmas 2008? He was dying of throat and brain cancer. And they gave him 3 weeks to live? Okay, well, his friends know me, and by Easter, if you remember, the cancer was gone, and he was back doing movies again. And it was from this formula. And then his problem was that the journalists refused to write his story because he did not take chemo. And because he didn't do the chemo and the standard methods, they wouldn't do it. And then about a year or 2 ago, he stopped taking this, went back to the drinking and the bad foods and the processed foods, and he had problems. They gave him Prilosec. He had problems with the pancreas. I don't know what they did to him, but he died in 4 days. And so they were trying to say it was pancreatic cancer, but when they did the testing, there was no cancer. There was nothing. It was inflammation. And so it was sad, but this is the doctors scare patients into these type of treatments. And I think part of it is because they really believe that they have the answer. I don't know. But I just know I stay away from it. And so what happened is, I'm showing that with this going on, all of a sudden these people said, gee, not only is my cancer gone, but my diabetes is gone. I was at 460, and now I'm down to 108 with no medication. Cholesterol, all these other maladies, which they call disease, was really the body's response to deficiency. So instead of taking these crazy medicines, if you just correct the minerals in the body will function the way it's supposed to. Okay. So now, what happens is, when we're talking about the vaccines, right, when I get a lot of kids who come to us with autism, in 5 minutes, they're calming down. And they can think, they can concentrate. The problem they have is that they can take in data, but they can't analyze it. And I'm showing, similar to what she was talking about, it's a chelation issue where the vaccines create a chelation of particular minerals and such in the body, and the body therefore can't function. So that's what this problem is. That's why, if you notice autistic kids, they can remember data, but they can't turn around and analyze the information. The same thing with Down syndrome. We get Down syndrome kids going from just crawling and slurring or drooling to walking, and then a couple of years later they're on the baseball team and on a skateboard like a normal kid. And the doctors have no interest. So the ADHD, all these conditions, all the neurological functions, it's all because of chelation. And so fortunately, when you put all the minerals in the correct proportions, we're finding that that's causing that to release that bond. and being able to chelate it out of the system. And a guy, Steve, who actually works for a medical school, he had prostate cancer, which is very easy to get rid of, especially in men. Well, there's some female track stars too. You know? Well, what happened is he also had mercury poisoning up to 63 parts per million, whereas up to 5 is okay. The body needs some. Well, in 3 months, the prostate cancer was totally gone. For 8 months, he was down to 3 parts per million on the mercury. But that's 10 years ago. He's fine. So we're finding a lot of these conditions by putting the minerals in the correct proportion. That's what we're getting. And then the thing about the cancer, I said that wrong about the sugar. With cancer, yes, cancer cells have high glucose, but that doesn't mean that it's feeding it. It's part of the structure. And if you try and starve it, you're going to starve the rest of the body of the sugar that it needs. We have 2 types of cells. We have function cells and data cells. The data cells, I'm going to be really quick. The data cells are where it takes information like the brain cells and such, and that requires a high amount of glucose in its cell. The function cells, like our muscles and such and bones, that takes a lower proportion of the sugar in its complex. So what happens is when we are minerally deficient, the body's trying to make the cells, it's going to use part of a data cell as well as the function cell that it can't finish making. And that's why we have a mutation in that cancer cell. Well, because it has the combination, the part of the cell from the data cell has the high glucose. So that is the reason why the cancer cell has high glucose. It's not because of a disease or an attack. So what we do is we correct the chemistry. The chemistry causes the domino effect to correct itself. DNA is correct. Now what happens is the body is making the cells correctly in the corrected atmosphere. The incorrect cells that were made before cannot survive in the corrected environment. Therefore, they die by their own starvation. No chemo, no radiation, no surgery. I've had a guy with colon cancer, 9 centimeters, and that was November 9th. March 30th, came out. He thought he gave birth to a rat. So I told him, name him Lucky. But what happened was, but the thing was, it happens as a natural. I got a guy who had pancreatic, liver, stomach, throat, and neck cancer. So I told him besides that he was fine. But the thing was, we had another, it was all cleared up in a couple of months. Another guy, 1 month, the pancreatic cancer was gone. His doctors looked at it, but maybe we made a mistake. They said, then you don't have to pay him. But the point is, we get a lot of this. We have a very high track record, and we're growing strictly by reputation. I don't advertise. You have to know how to find us. But I work in most hospitals, actually Mayo in Arizona. We're known in pretty much every country. And if you know my name, so if you go to fredeichhorn.com, I have all my literature in there, okay? And you can email us and such. Also, ncrf.org also has a lot, or if you can remember, ncrf.org/CD has a lot of my literature, okay? So we don't charge for consultations. I'm trying to help people. This is a devotion, it's not a business. And I started out making 25 kits in 2000, like 1998 after Diana died. And now we're doing 3,500 kits a month. And it's growing because of its reputation, because, really quick, I know I'm behind, Virginia Academy of Science did work with Alzheimer's. And the inflammation factor went from 5,113 down to 0.046, which is 11 million% improvement, okay, which is published, okay? They didn't want to do anything about it. They said, yeah, okay, that's nice. And meanwhile, we had great results with Alzheimer's and all that. I tell people we have this great cure for Alzheimer's, I forgot what it was. But anyway, I know I'm behind my time, right? Okay, I think it's great meeting you, and we'll be outside, and